I woke up to an empty apartment. Not just physically empty, but the kind of empty where everything feels too quiet, too still. My phone sat next to me on the bed, its screen blank and lifeless. No buzzing, no notifications, no messages. It wasn't the first time I had woken up alone, but it felt different this time. This wasn't the usual absence of a morning routine, a fleeting gap between when she left and when I woke up. I checked the time, 7:03 a.m. She should have been here. The place wasn't exactly small, but it felt massive when you realized you were the only one moving in it. I pushed myself out of bed, my head still heavy from the restless night. The sheets smelled like her, but the scent was fading, evaporating the longer I stood still. I walked down the hallway to the living room, glancing at the table where she used to leave little notes, or at least crumbs from her late-night snacks. It was spotless. Too spotless. There was nothing. No jacket draped over the couch. No shoes kicked aside by the door. Nothing. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe she had an early meeting or went for a walk. But as I reached for my phone again, I noticed it wasn't just the absence of her presence that bothered me. It was the absence of any sign. I opened my contacts. Her name was still there, but when I tapped it, something odd happened. There was no profile picture. No recent text history, nothing recent at all. I panicked. I opened my messages, empty. Just blank space. I tried calling her, but it rang only once before going to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. Instead, I sent a text, asking what was going on, where she was. The room felt cold, and for the first time in a while, I felt the overwhelming weight of silence pressing against me. I started pacing, trying to make sense of it, but nothing made sense. This wasn't normal. There was always some sign, some trace of her, a note, a voicemail, something that would explain why she wasn't here. But there was nothing. I checked the fridge, half full, as usual. The leftover pizza from last night still sat there, untouched. She always ate her slice before bed, even when she was tired. I checked the bathroom. Her toothbrush was gone, but the hairdryer was still plugged in. It felt like she had just vanished in a single moment, leaving behind every physical trace, but taking everything that mattered. I stood there for what seemed like hours, my mind racing. Had she gone out and simply forgotten to tell me? That wasn't like her. I checked my phone again. No reply. I tried her again. No answer. I remember walking to the window, the sun beginning to peek through the blinds, casting streaks of light across the floor. The city was alive outside, people walking, cars honking, the usual morning noise. But inside, it was just me. Just this crushing emptiness that seemed to stretch out endlessly. She had left before, gone on trips, taken time for herself, but this felt different. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it wasn't just the physical absence. It was the absence of everything that came with her. I had no way to explain it, no way to put it into words. She wasn't just gone. It was as if she had erased herself from my world entirely. Hours went by, and I tried to carry on as normal. Took a shower, made a sandwich, tried to focus on anything other than the unsettling feeling that gnawed at my insides. Yet, no matter what I did, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. By the time night fell, I had called every number I could think of. Friends, family, her coworkers. No one had heard from her. No one could explain where she was. But then it happened. My phone buzzed, a single notification. It was a text from a number I didn't recognize. The message read, "You don't know why she left, but you'll find out soon enough." The room seemed to close in around me. I stared at the message, unable to comprehend what I was reading. I tried to call the number, but it was disconnected almost immediately. That was the moment I realized the truth. This wasn't some accidental disappearance. This wasn't just her being mad or needing space. She had planned this, and I was the last to know. I sat there in the silence, staring at my phone, the strange text still lingering in my mind. "You don't know why she left, but you'll find out soon enough." The words were simple, but the implications were suffocating. Who was this person? Why were they reaching out to me? And more importantly, why was Clara not the one answering? I stood up, pacing around the apartment as the questions kept multiplying. Everything around me felt so unfamiliar. The walls, once a backdrop to our shared moments, now seemed like cold observers to a drama I didn't understand. Her coat was missing, her shoes, her bag. Everything that had once been a part of her routine was gone, leaving nothing but the silence. I tried to call her again. No answer. The voicemail greeting had changed, but it didn't sound like her voice anymore. The change was subtle, but unmistakable. It wasn't the warm, familiar tone I'd been hearing for the last few years. It felt distant, detached, like it came from someone else entirely. My heart raced as my mind went into overdrive. Where could she be? What could be so important that she'd leave everything behind? I thought about driving to her work, but something stopped me. Maybe it was the nagging feeling that whatever was going on, it wasn't just a simple misunderstanding. I wasn't sure what had changed, but it had to be something significant. I couldn't shake the thought that something had been building up for months, something that had been right in front of me all along, but I had never seen it. Her car was gone, too. I had barely noticed when I left for work that morning, but now it seemed so obvious. Where had she gone? What had she taken with her? It wasn't just the physical absence. It was the absence of everything. Her energy, her laughter, the small things she used to do without thinking. I remember how she used to leave little notes on the fridge, reminders of things to do, or sometimes just random thoughts she'd scribble down while making breakfast. Now, all I had was a cold, empty apartment. By now, hours had passed, and I still hadn't heard from her. I went through the entire apartment, opening every door, every drawer, hoping for a clue, something that could give me an answer. It felt like I was hunting for a missing person, but in reality, the only person I was searching for was my own wife. As I opened the bedroom door again, I couldn't help but notice something else. There, on the dresser, was her necklace. The one she always wore, the one I gave her for our anniversary last year. It was lying there, untouched. I picked it up, feeling the cold metal in my hands. It didn't feel like a gift anymore. It felt like a sign. A reminder that whatever was happening, it wasn't going to end easily. I sat down on the bed, staring at the necklace, wondering what had gone so wrong. I thought back to the last few months, the subtle changes I had noticed in her, how she seemed distant at times, her answers always short, her presence often withdrawn. But I had brushed it off as stress. She had been working longer hours, and I had assumed it was just a phase. We were both busy, right? There had to be a reason for it. But now, as I sat there alone, I started to wonder if I had ignored something much deeper. I couldn't help but think about our last conversation. She had been quiet, but there had been a strange tension in the air. I had asked her if something was wrong, if there was anything she wanted to talk about. She'd brush me off, as usual, with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm fine," she had said, "just tired." But that wasn't the truth, was it? I felt an overwhelming sense of frustration. Why hadn't I seen it? Why hadn't I pushed harder, asked more questions? I thought we were okay. I thought she was happy. We had been together for over 5 years. What was I missing? I opened my phone again, scrolling through the list of contacts, but no one had heard from her. I tried calling her friends, but no one picked up. It was the middle of the day, so I decided to head over to her best friend's place, hoping for some answers. But as I stepped outside, my phone buzzed again. Another text. This one was different. It wasn't from an unknown number. It was from Clara. "I'm sorry, but I needed to do this. You'll understand soon enough. Please don't come looking for me. Just stay away." I froze, staring at the screen. My breath caught in my throat. What was she talking about? Why was she apologizing? And why the hell would she tell me to stay away? I dialed her number again, almost desperate, but once again, it went straight to voicemail. This time, I left a message. I told her I was confused, worried, that I loved her, and I just needed to understand what was happening. But deep down, I knew that she wasn't just gone. She was hiding something from me, something far deeper than I could have ever imagined. And I wasn't about to let her go without finding out the truth. The days that followed felt like a blur, a constant rush of confusion and unanswered questions. I tried to piece together the fragments of what I knew, but each new detail only led to more uncertainty. Clara's absence was unsettling, but it was the things I started to uncover in her absence that made my heart race with dread. I couldn't let it go. I couldn't just sit back and let her disappear without understanding why. But the more I searched, the more I felt like I was walking down a path that had been carefully designed for me to follow. Her texts had stopped, her friends wouldn't respond to my calls, and the apartment, once our shared sanctuary, felt like a tomb. The coldness that had settled over everything was suffocating. I went through her things again. I wasn't proud of it, but I needed to understand. The first time I checked her phone, it had been a frantic, almost desperate search, but now, I had more clarity. I wasn't just looking for answers. I was looking for the truth, the kind of truth that could shatter everything I thought I knew about her. I started with her emails, a place I hadn't thought to look before. At first, there was nothing unusual, just work-related messages and a few newsletters from organizations she followed. But then, I stumbled across a thread of emails that didn't belong. There were several exchanges from the past 6 months, all from a name I didn't recognize. I clicked on the first one, my heart thumping in my chest. The subject line read, "Can't keep pretending." I hesitated, but I opened it. The words inside were stark, direct, and cold. It was a conversation between Clara and someone else, someone who wasn't me. They talked about breaking free, starting fresh, and how they had been stuck for too long. The emails were filled with things I couldn't ignore. The person she was talking to made it clear that they had been meeting in secret, and that Clara was planning to leave. She had been planning it for months, and I had never seen it coming. The second email in the thread was even more chilling. Clara had written, "I'm scared of what will happen when I finally do it. I love him, but I'm not in love with him anymore." I felt the blood drain from my face. What was I reading? This wasn't the woman I knew. This wasn't the Clara I'd spent years with. The email was signed with just a name, Alex. No last name, no further details. Just that one word. I didn't need to search for him. I knew exactly who he was. He was one of her colleagues, a guy I'd met once at a work party. Quiet, reserved, a little too charming for my liking. But it seemed like I had missed the signs. The late nights at work, the secretive phone calls she would take in another room, the way she started to pull away emotionally. It all made sense now. I couldn't just sit there anymore. I needed to confront this, to ask her, to demand answers. But the fear kept creeping up. What if it was true? What if everything she had told me about love and commitment was a lie? What if Alex was right, and I was just the guy she settled for, someone she couldn't bring herself to leave but wasn't really in love with anymore? I called her work again, and this time, I was more persistent. I needed to know where she was, what she was doing. Her assistant answered, and after a few awkward moments of dodging my questions, she finally said something that sent a shiver down my spine. "She's not coming back, Mr. Hensley. She resigned last week. Packed up her things, said she was taking a break. I think she's gone for good." I sat back in the chair, the world spinning around me. She had resigned? She hadn't even told me. All this time, while I had been living in denial, Clara had already made up her mind. She had made the decision to leave, and there was nothing I could do about it. But the worst part? The thing that kept me up at night, that gnawed at my insides, was that it felt like I was only learning half of the story. Clara was gone, but the truth, the real truth, it was still out there, somewhere, hidden in the gaps between the emails and the silence she had left behind. That evening, after sitting in the apartment for hours, I got another message. This one wasn't from Clara. It wasn't from Alex either. This time, it was from an unknown number, and it was just a simple message. "She's with him. Don't try to find her." I felt like the walls were closing in on me. How did they know where she was? How did they know what was happening? And why wouldn't they just leave me alone? But in some strange way, it gave me a sense of purpose. Whoever was behind these messages, whoever was keeping me in the dark, they knew more than they were telling. And they wanted me to stay in the dark. But I wasn't going to let that happen. I was going to find out the truth, no matter what it took. Even if it meant confronting Clara and Alex. I grabbed my coat and walked out the door. The night was cold, the city lights dim in the distance. But as I stepped out into the unknown, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking right into the heart of something I wasn't prepared for. I didn't know where to start, but the pull to uncover the truth was overwhelming. The message from the unknown number had been clear. "She's with him. Don't try to find her." But that only made me want to find her more. I couldn't let go of the thought that I was being manipulated, kept in the dark on purpose, like a puppet in someone's game. I needed to know what was going on. I needed to see it for myself, to look her in the eyes and hear the truth from her lips. I started with Alex. He was the one I had to find. The man who had replaced me, or so it seemed. The colleague I had briefly met at a work party. The one who had always given me that strange vibe. He wasn't hard to track down. His office was in the same building as Clara's. It wasn't the first time I had been here. I had visited her workplace numerous times, bringing her lunch or picking her up after late meetings. This time, though, the building felt different. It felt like a fortress, one that was closing in on me. I walked through the glass doors and made my way to the elevator. The usual hum of the office was now replaced with a tense silence in my head. My hands were clammy, but I had made up my mind. I wasn't leaving until I had some answers. Alex's office was on the third floor, just a few doors down from Clara's. I stood in front of it for a moment, staring at the plaque with his name on it. I could hear voices inside, light laughter, the sound of papers shuffling. He was in there. My fingers curled into fists, my heart pounding in my chest. I was seconds away from knocking when the door opened, and I found myself face to face with him. "Can I help you?" Alex asked, his voice smooth, his expression one of polite curiosity. He was well-dressed, confident, exactly the kind of guy I knew Clara would be drawn to. I had no idea what to say at first. Everything I had rehearsed, every question I had prepared, seemed irrelevant in that moment. "I'm looking for Clara," I said, my voice coming out a little shaky, despite my best efforts to sound composed. "Clara." He raised an eyebrow, a hint of amusement in his eyes. "She's not here. I think she's taken some personal time." "You didn't know that?" I felt my heart drop into my stomach. "So, she wasn't just gone from home, she was gone from work too. Do you know where she is?" I asked, trying to keep the panic from seeping into my voice. Alex seemed to hesitate for a second, as though weighing his words carefully. "I don't know," he said slowly. "She left a few days ago, told me she needed space. She's been under a lot of stress lately, so I figured she just needed some time to clear her head." Clear her head. The words caught in my throat. She didn't mention anything to me about needing space. Alex looked uncomfortable, but he quickly masked it with a tight smile. "People sometimes keep things to themselves. You know how it is." I nodded, though my mind was racing. This didn't feel right. Clara would never just disappear like this. She would never cut me off without warning. The Clara I knew wasn't the type to leave without telling anyone. Something was happening, something bigger than I could grasp, and Alex was holding on to a piece of it. I took a step forward, not caring if I was crossing boundaries. "You're lying to me," I said, my voice low but firm. "You know more than you're letting on." Alex's face shifted, the confident mask faltering for just a second. I caught the flicker of guilt in his eyes before he quickly composed himself. "Look, I don't know what you think is going on, but Clara is an adult. She made her choice. If she wants to talk to you, she will." I could feel my blood start to boil. The casual way he dismissed the situation, the way he talked about Clara as if she was just some decision he had no part in. It was infuriating. I had spent years with her, sharing everything, and this man had just waltzed into our lives, taking what wasn't his. I wasn't leaving until I had answers, and I wasn't about to take any more of his evasions. "Where is she?" I demanded, my voice sharp now. "Tell me the truth." For a moment, Alex just stood there, eyes flicking between me and the door, his hands twitching like he was ready to bolt. Finally, he exhaled, as if resigning himself to something. "You want the truth? She's not in the city anymore. She's gone, and she doesn't want to come back." I froze. "Gone? Gone where?" Alex glanced around the room, making sure no one was listening. "I'm not going to get involved in this," he muttered, stepping closer. "She told me she was going to start over, somewhere far from here. I'm not the person you should be asking about this. If you want to know why she left, you should probably talk to her." I felt my vision blur for a second, the weight of his words crashing down on me. Clara was gone. Gone without a trace, without any explanation, without even the decency to say goodbye. I wanted to scream, to shout, but all I could do was stand there, feeling like the ground beneath me was crumbling. Before I could say anything more, Alex quickly stepped back. "Look, I've told you everything I know. I'm not your enemy here." He held up his hands in a gesture of surrender. "She made her choice. Now, it's time for you to move on." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. His words were cold, distant, and it hit me like a punch to the gut. Clara wasn't just avoiding me. She wasn't just upset. She had made a decision to leave, to disappear, and Alex was the one who had been there, standing by her side as she did it. I turned on my heel, leaving his office without another word. My mind was spinning, the pieces of the puzzle clicking together in an agonizing way. Clara had been hiding this from me for months. She had planned this, and I had never seen it coming. As I walked down the hallway, my phone buzzed again. Another message, this time from Clara. "I told you not to come looking for me. Now you've made things worse." I stopped in my tracks. It was her. She was out there, and she was still trying to hide. I stood frozen in the hallway, phone gripped tightly in my hand, staring at the message from Clara. I told you not to come looking for me. Now you've made things worse. The words stung, but they also made something else stir inside me. A mix of anger, hurt, and confusion. She was telling me not to look for her, but all I could think was, how could she do this to me? How could she just disappear, leave everything behind, and still have the audacity to send me messages like this? I had no answers, no clarity. Every step I took felt like it was leading me deeper into a web I didn't understand, a situation where every piece of the puzzle was designed to keep me in the dark. It was like she had been preparing this for months, maybe even longer. And now, with one simple message, she was telling me to stop, to give up. But I couldn't. I couldn't walk away from this without knowing the truth, no matter how much it hurt. I wasn't the kind of person who could just accept things without an explanation. And the more I tried to make sense of what was happening, the more I realized I was completely lost. I had been for months, maybe even longer, and I hadn't even known it. I stepped out of the building, my mind still reeling from the conversation with Alex. He had been cold, distant, and entirely too composed for someone who was supposedly helping her. I couldn't trust him, not now, not after everything I had uncovered. The pieces didn't fit. He was hiding something, and I was determined to find out what it was. I walked to my car, the sound of my footsteps echoing in the empty street. My phone buzzed again, another message. This time, it wasn't from Clara. It was from an unknown number. You're looking in the wrong places. I stopped dead in my tracks. My breath caught in my throat. Who was this? What did they know? My pulse quickened, and I opened the message without thinking. It was short and cryptic, just like the last one. But this time, something felt different. The words seemed to pierce through the fog in my mind, like they were trying to tell me something I hadn't yet seen. She's not hiding from you. She's hiding from herself. What did that mean? The message seemed to make no sense at first, but then, slowly, it began to sink in. Clara had been running from something. I had known that. But now, the idea that she was hiding from herself, it was as if she had been struggling with something so deep, something I could never have understood. She wasn't just leaving me. She was running from her own choices, from a part of herself that she had tried so hard to keep buried. I didn't know what this person meant or why they were sending me these messages, but I couldn't ignore it. I had to find out more. With one last glance at the street, I got into my car and drove straight to Clara's parents' house. The city passed by in a blur, the hum of the engine filling the silence, but my thoughts were consumed by everything I had learned. Clara's sudden disappearance, Alex's strange behavior, and now, these mysterious messages. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being led somewhere, that someone, whether it was Clara or someone else, was pulling the strings, pushing me toward an ending I wasn't ready to face. Clara's parents lived on the outskirts of the city, in a quiet neighborhood filled with old houses and overgrown gardens. The streets were lined with tall trees, casting long shadows over the sidewalk as the sun began to set. When I pulled into their driveway, I didn't know what I expected. I didn't know what I was hoping for. But the sight of their house, empty, unchanged, only made me feel more alone. I knocked on the door, and after a few moments, Clara's mother answered. "Oh, it's you," she said, her voice strained. I could see the lines of worry etched across her face, but she didn't let it show too much. "Is there something I can do for you?" "I need to talk to Clara," I said, my voice shaky despite my efforts to sound calm. Her mother's expression faltered, and for a moment, she looked like she might close the door. "Clara isn't here," she said slowly. "We haven't heard from her in a few days." My heart sank. "You haven't heard from her?" She shook her head. "She left, just like you. Without a word. She said she needed space. But I don't think that's the whole story, either." I felt the weight of her words settle heavily in my chest. Clara's mother knew something. She had to know something. "What do you mean?" I asked, stepping closer. "What aren't you telling me?" Her mother hesitated before sighing deeply. "Clara has been different for a while now. She's been distant, secretive. I don't know how to explain it, but she's been running from something she's too scared to face. I've tried talking to her, but she won't open up." "Has she mentioned anything about where she's going?" I pressed, my voice trembling with urgency. "No," she said softly, looking away. "She's left us all behind, even her own family. But I think she's trying to escape, just like the messages say. I think she's hiding from herself." The words hit me like a ton of bricks. The same words that had been in that cryptic message. Clara wasn't just leaving me. She was running from herself. But why? What was so terrible that she couldn't face it? What was she afraid of? I thanked Clara's mother and left her house, my mind racing with unanswered questions. As I got back into my car, I felt a strange calmness wash over me. The truth was out there, and I was closer to finding it than I'd ever been before. But there was still something I hadn't figured out, something I hadn't seen, and I was determined to uncover it, no matter what it took. Because Clara, whatever she was running from, wasn't going to be able to hide forever. And when I found her, I would finally get the answers I had been searching for. The night stretched out before me as I drove aimlessly, my mind awash with a storm of emotions. The conversation with Clara's mother had left me shaken. She's hiding from herself. Those words echoed in my head, repeating over and over like a broken record. I thought I had understood the situation, but now everything seemed more convoluted than ever. Clara wasn't just hiding from me. She was hiding from something deeper, something that had nothing to do with me at all. And that realization hit me harder than anything else. I wasn't sure what I was looking for anymore, but I knew I couldn't go back. I couldn't just sit at home and wait for her to return, hoping she would explain herself. Whatever was happening, whatever she was running from, it was something I needed to understand. My own doubts and questions about our relationship paled in comparison to whatever had been building up inside her for all this time. I pulled up to the small cafe where Clara and I had spent many late nights, sipping coffee, talking about everything and nothing. It was the one place we always felt comfortable, away from the chaos of our daily lives. As I sat down at our usual table, I felt an odd sense of nostalgia wash over me, but it quickly faded, replaced by frustration and confusion. This place used to feel like home, but now it only felt like another reminder of what I had lost. I ordered a coffee, though it felt like a pointless act. I wasn't here for a drink. I was here for answers. But no matter how many times I went over everything in my head, I couldn't make sense of it. Clara's sudden disappearance. The cryptic messages. Her mother's words. It was as if I was being led through a maze, each step bringing me closer to a truth that was just out of reach. As I sipped my coffee, my phone buzzed again. Another message. This time, it wasn't from Clara, nor was it from an unknown number. It was from Alex. My heart skipped a beat as I opened the message, my breath catching in my throat. She's not coming back, man. I didn't want to say it, but I think you need to hear it. She's gone for good. I stared at the screen, the words hitting me harder than I expected. I had known it, deep down. I had known that she had made up her mind, but seeing it in black and white made it so final. It felt like a punch to the gut, knocking the wind out of me. Clara had left, and she wasn't coming back. But there was more. The next line of the message sent a chill down my spine. She's doing this for herself. It's not about you. You have to let her go. I didn't reply right away. My hands were shaking as I set the phone down, staring at the table in front of me. It's not about me. That was what Alex had said, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized how true it was. This wasn't just some argument or breakdown in our relationship. Clara wasn't leaving because of me. She was leaving because of something that had been buried deep inside her. Something that had been there long before I came into the picture. I needed to find out what it was. I couldn't just accept the idea that she was walking away, that she was disappearing into thin air without any explanation. I had to understand why she had done this, what had happened between us, what had happened to her. I stood up, my heart pounding in my chest, and walked out of the cafe. The night air hit me like a cold slap, but I didn't feel it. My thoughts were too clouded, too frantic to focus on anything else. I had to find her. I had to track down the truth. I drove to the one place I hadn't thought of yet, the place that had been in the back of my mind all this time, lingering like a shadow. Clara's old apartment, the one she had rented before we moved in together. She had kept it for a while, even after we'd settled into our new place. I had always assumed it was just a safety net, something she didn't want to let go of completely. I never thought it would mean something more. I pulled up to the building, the parking lot as empty as I had expected it to be. The lights were dim, the whole place quiet, almost deserted. It was late, and I didn't know what I was hoping to find, but something in me told me that this was where I would finally uncover the answers I had been searching for. I walked up the stairs to her old unit, my steps slow and heavy. As I reached the door, I hesitated. What if I was wrong? What if there was nothing here? What if Clara had truly moved on, and I was just grasping at straws. But I couldn't turn back. I couldn't just walk away from this without knowing. I had to know what had happened, what had gone wrong. I knocked softly, not expecting anyone to answer. But to my surprise, the door opened, and I found myself face to face with a woman I didn't recognize. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice cautious, her eyes scanning me with suspicion. I swallowed, the words stuck in my throat for a moment. "I'm looking for Clara," I said, my voice hoarse. "She used to live here." The woman's expression softened, but only slightly. "She's not here anymore," she said. "She moved out a while ago." I felt my heart sink. "Do you know where she went?" The woman looked at me for a long moment, and then, almost reluctantly, she spoke. "I don't know where she is now, but I know why she left. She was running from something. She didn't say much, but she wasn't happy. I think she was trying to find herself." I took a step back, trying to absorb her words. Running from something. That was the second time I had heard that phrase. Clara had been running from something, but what? Before I could ask anything else, the woman closed the door, leaving me standing there in the hallway, more confused than ever. I stared at the door for a long time, the weight of her words sinking in. Clara hadn't just left because of me. She had been searching for something that she hadn't been able to find in our life together. And now, I was left to pick up the pieces of a puzzle that was only getting more complicated with every new revelation. I didn't know where to go from here, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't stop until I uncovered the truth. Whatever it was, I had to find it. I stood outside the apartment, the echoes of the woman's words ringing in my ears. She was running from something. It wasn't just a random comment. It was a clue, one that seemed to tie everything together. Clara wasn't just trying to escape me, or our life together, like I had feared. She was running from something deeper, something inside herself that she couldn't face. But what was it? And why had she kept it from me for so long? I wasn't sure how long I stood there, lost in thought, but eventually, the reality of the situation began to set in. I had been chasing shadows, trying to put together the pieces of a story that wasn't mine to tell. I had been living in the dark, oblivious to the things Clara had been hiding. And now, it seemed, the only way forward was to keep chasing those shadows. I turned away from the apartment complex, feeling the weight of the unanswered questions pressing heavily on my chest. The streets were quiet, the city's hum barely audible in the background. I wasn't sure where I was going, but I knew I couldn't go home just yet. Not with everything hanging in the air like this. I drove aimlessly, the headlights cutting through the darkness, my thoughts a jumbled mess of confusion and frustration. Claire was out there somewhere. She was hiding from something, and the only way I was going to get the answers I needed was to find her. But where? I thought about all the places she could be, her parents' house, friends she hadn't seen in a while, but none of it felt right. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Then, like a lightning bolt, it hit me. There was one place I hadn't thought to check, the one place she had gone to before when she needed to escape everything. The one place she used to go when she needed space, when everything felt too overwhelming for her. I knew exactly where she might be. I drove straight to the old cabin in the woods. It was a small, secluded place, tucked away from everything. Clara had rented it a few times over the years, mostly when she needed to clear her head. She had always been the type to retreat into nature when life got too loud. We had spent a few weekends there together, but she had always gone alone when she needed to be by herself. I hadn't thought about the cabin in months. But now, it seemed like the only place she could be. The drive out of the city felt like it took forever, the road winding through thick trees and darkened hills. My nerves were on edge, but I couldn't afford to second-guess myself. I had to find her. I had to understand what had driven her to disappear, what had pushed her to the point where running away was the only option left. As I pulled up to the cabin, I saw the faint glow of light through the windows. My heart raced, hope and dread swirling inside me. This could be it. This could be the moment when everything finally made sense. Or it could be another dead end, another place where Clara wasn't. I parked the car and stepped out, the cold air biting at my skin. I approached the door slowly, my hand hovering over the knob. I didn't know what I would say if she was inside. I didn't know what I would do if she turned me away again. But I had to try. I had to know the truth. I knocked gently at first, then louder, each knock a desperate plea for answers. I waited for a long moment, but there was no response. The silence pressed in around me, thick and suffocating. I knocked again, this time harder, my fist pounding against the wooden door. Finally, the door creaked open, and there she was, Clara. She looked different, her eyes red-rimmed, her hair messy as if she hadn't cared to fix it. She was standing there, frozen, as though she hadn't expected to see me. Her gaze flicked over me, and for a brief moment, there was something in her expression that almost seemed regretful. But she quickly masked it with a blank stare. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice low and flat, betraying none of the emotion that I could see flickering in her eyes. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words wouldn't come. I had so much to say, so many questions, but I was at a loss for how to begin. I couldn't just ask her to explain everything, not after everything that had happened. "I've been looking for you," I finally said, my voice tight with emotion. "Clara, I need to know what's going on. Why did you leave? Why are you hiding from me?" She looked at me for a long moment, her face unreadable. Then, without a word, she stepped back and opened the door wider, allowing me to enter. I hesitated, but then I walked in, the weight of the situation settling heavily over me. The cabin was small, cozy, filled with the scent of wood and something faintly familiar. Her perfume, maybe. It was the same place we had spent those weekends, but it felt different now. It felt cold, distant. "I didn't want to hurt you," Clara said finally, breaking the silence. Her voice was shaky, her words coming out slowly, as though she was trying to find the right way to explain everything. "But I didn't know how to tell you the truth. I've been running from things for so long. I didn't know how to face it." "Face what?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I could feel the tension between us, thick and suffocating. "What have you been hiding from me, Clara? I need to know." She looked away, her eyes focused on something far off, and for a moment, I thought she might not answer. But then, finally, she spoke. "I've been running from myself," she said, her voice barely audible. "From the things I've done, the things I've ignored. I've been pretending for so long that everything was fine, but it wasn't, and I couldn't keep pretending anymore." I stepped closer, my heart pounding in my chest. "Clara, you don't have to do this alone. Whatever it is, we can face it together." But she shook her head, her eyes filled with pain. "No, you don't understand. This isn't about you. This is something I have to figure out on my own." She took a deep breath and met my eyes. I thought I could handle it, but I couldn't, and now, I don't know if I can fix it. Her words hung in the air, heavy and unresolved. I wanted to say something, to tell her that we could work through it, but I knew better. Clara had already made up her mind. She had already decided she needed to face whatever it was on her own. And as much as I hated it, I had to respect that. But one thing was clear, the journey wasn't over. She hadn't found the answers she was looking for, and neither had I. The truth was still out there, waiting to be uncovered. And this time, I wouldn't stop until I had all the pieces. The silence that settled between us after Clara spoke felt suffocating. I could see the pain in her eyes, the weight of everything she had been carrying for so long. She wasn't just running from me. She was running from herself, from the person she thought she had to be, from the choices she had made that she couldn't undo. And I had to let her confront that on her own. But in that moment, something shifted inside me. The anger, the frustration, it all started to melt away, replaced with something stronger, something more grounding. Clara wasn't asking for me to fix things for her. She wasn't asking for me to be the solution. She was asking for space. Yes, but she was also asking for me to trust her, to trust that she would find her way back to herself, even if it meant a long, difficult journey. "I don't know how to help you," I said softly, my voice steady now. "But I'm not going anywhere, Clara. I don't care how long it takes. I'm here. Whenever you're ready to talk, to face whatever it is that's been holding you back, I'll be here." Clara's eyes welled up with tears, and for a brief moment, I thought she might break down. But she didn't. She just nodded, her shoulders sagging with a weight she had been carrying for far too long. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice raw. "Thank you for not giving up on me." "I'll never give up on you," I replied firmly, stepping closer. I gently took her hand, feeling the warmth of her skin beneath my fingers. "But I need you to trust me, too. I can't be the one to carry all of this for you. You have to face it yourself. And when you're ready, we'll figure it out together." Clara squeezed my hand, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she smiled. It wasn't a big smile, but it was real. And in that moment, I realized something important. Whatever happened next, this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of something new. A journey of healing, of rediscovery, not just for her, but for both of us. The days that followed were slow, filled with quiet conversations and moments of reflection. Clara spent more time at the cabin, but I visited often, never pushing, just being there when she needed me. We learned how to communicate in a way we hadn't before, to share the parts of ourselves that we had been hiding, even from each other. One evening, a few months later, Clara came to me with a new light in her eyes. She wasn't the same person who had walked away in fear. She was someone who had finally begun to embrace her truth. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she said, sitting beside me on the porch of the cabin. "And I've realized something. I don't need to keep running. I don't need to be perfect. And I don't need to carry the weight of my past mistakes anymore." I smiled, feeling a wave of relief wash over me. "Clara, you don't have to be perfect. You never did." She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes again. But this time they were tears of healing, not sorrow. "I'm ready now, to move forward, with you." And that was it, the turning point. We had made it through the storm, and now we were ready to rebuild. Slowly, carefully, but with the kind of trust that only comes from truly understanding each other. It wasn't going to be easy. There would be challenges ahead, but I knew we could face them together. The last few months had been hard. We had both been lost in different ways, but we had found each other again, not because we had solved all the problems, but because we were willing to work through them. And that, more than anything, was the real victory. As Clara and I sat there, watching the sun set behind the trees, I knew that whatever came next, we were no longer running. We had finally stopped hiding, from each other and from ourselves. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace with whatever was ahead. We had found our way back to each other, and that was all that mattered.